Okay, welcome back to Swans Cast, everyone. So I'm once again joined by a very special guest, second appearance on the channel. So welcome back, Benjamin Bloom.
Happy to be here, Luke. Very exciting in a very lovely week for me, but a very nervous week for you.
As a neutral, it must be probably easier to watch what's going to unfold in the next couple of weeks. Which brings us to why we are here. So Ben's come to join us, so he can give us a neutral sort of view on how he sees the full playoff picture. We're going to obviously talk about in a later video this week the playoffs from a Swansea only perspective with a couple of our other guests that we get on. But I also wanted to look at it from an outside perspective without maybe the bias that we might discuss when there's a bunch of Swans fans, just to see what the outside picture's looking like, basically. So all honest opinions, tell us how exactly it really is, and we'll go from there. But before we start, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and your content?
Yeah, sure. So it's the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel on YouTube, Championship reviews and previews and watch-alongs, all of that good stuff. And there is a video on there, a deep dive into Swansea's season already, and my view on how it is that they got there. So yeah, Twitter at Benjamin Bloom, but YouTube is the best place to get involved with all of that stuff.
Yeah, I did check that video, very good. And I also noticed a couple of things recently that you've done. I loved your reaction to the goal, again, was it the Derby game, when they changed the full picture of the relegation fight. I think when we...
It was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very brilliant reactions. That was on Twitter. And
the Championship, Luke, sometimes you think if you sat down there with like Michael Bay or the writers of a disaster movie or something and scripted it, it wouldn't be any more dramatic than it actually turns out to be, as you would know as Swansea fans after the last day of last season.
Yeah, arguably a little bit calmer for us this year, isn't it? But I guess it couldn't really get any more nerve-wracking and sort of nail-biting stuff than it was last year. Obviously, we were lucky after that, and we were the beneficiaries. But this year, we're there because we've been there all season. So expectations are maybe a little bit different. Obviously, we'll dive into that as we go along the video. Before we start, I just want to general talk then. How have you been keeping since the last time? Like, what have you been doing? Obviously, tough times for everyone, but how are you keeping?
Yeah, just more of the same. I'm very, very lucky that I can get out of bed, come up to the office and talk about football. And we're nearly there in terms of it being a viable pursuit over this last year. Obviously, you say it with some guilt, and I did lose my job last June, but the crisis, you have to try and exploit it to whatever. If you're stuck inside and all you can do is talk about football, then that's what we've done. So yeah, just more of the same. And it's always, I've done this for a few seasons now. That end of the season is always a great time to be, especially the Championship with playoffs and 3 teams down, 4 in the playoffs too. Dull at the top of the league, honestly, with everything locked up after that Swans Reading game and the brilliant cameo by Ayew in the 2-2 draw. But
brilliant.
Yeah, more than made up for with the ludicrous 3-3 draw. And just before we've come on air, Derby have tweeted that they've been found guilty on appeal. So it's going to run into next season as well.
I saw Wickham were interested in now, and they were having a look into what they could do, but don't know what will come out of that.
I suspect Derby will, if found guilty, as we now think they have been, will be deducted points next season.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shame because I was surprised they finished where they finished, and I think you were too after seeing your reaction video to your initial predictions, where you did actually manage to get the top 3 correct. So that's a shout out there. Well done for that.
I'm not one to gloat, but yeah, I think a few people with Barnsley and Derby, Forest, Stoke with me. I always get Stoke miles out. But where was I with Swansea? I think I had them 8th, didn't I?
You were too far off. To be honest, I think 8th,
8th to 4th
could have been there. After last season, it's tricky to see where we're going to be, and we did have a striker. You're right. Like, we haven't had a striker, and that's something maybe we'll discuss more when we look at the actual match now. But overachieved, you could argue, in that sense. Like you did mention in Swansea's season review, didn't you? We talked about that sort of the situation around the transfers and all of that sort of stuff. Last thing then, before we get on to the actual nitty gritty, Ipswich fan yourself. So how would you say their season's been? They didn't quite make it in terms of coming back up. Is that correct?
Yeah, dull. Had Paul Lambert for a lot. But this will be the season that will now be remembered as where the ownership changed. So new owners in from about 2/3 of the way. No, probably 3/4 of the way through the season. Paul Cook as well, arriving with a big reputation from Pompey and Chesterfield and Wigan, etc. Of course, Jamal Lowe's manager last season as well. Ed Sheeran confirmed as the sponsor, so national news in the week. Let's hope that just feels like we've had one good season as Ipswich fans, 14-15, with McCarthy 6th and lost in the playoffs. Feels like we've had one good season in probably 15 years. So
maybe a time's coming now with the ownership change. Hopefully that's a positive.
Fingers crossed.
And it's an upward trend. And I mean, I don't want to say hopefully, because obviously we want to go up after this playoff run, but maybe we'll see you like in the Championship in the near future. Who knows?
We hope.
Okay. I did already touch on then. You already predicted the Championship top 3 correct. I know the playoffs were maybe a little bit more harder to predict, and especially with Barnsley being up there, I think if anyone said they put Barnsley where they finished, I'd be dubious if that's actually where they predicted them based on the beginning of the season. But what do you make of the 4 teams that actually finished in playoffs? Was it like what you expected, or what do you make of that really?
I had predicted Brentford to be 3rd. I had predicted Stoke to be 4th. I thought they would actually improve on last season under Michael O'Neill. That was obviously badly wrong. I can't remember who I had 5th and 6th. I had Forest in the playoffs.
Oh.
Sure, I think I had Cardiff. Did I have Cardiff 6th possibly? I think
you might have said they wouldn't improve, but we didn't see enough for them to improve, so it could have been, because they would have dropped down one place, wouldn't they?
It's just one position. So I think those were the teams I had finishing there. Look, Brentford is not a surprise. Bournemouth, given their year-one parachute team and they've avoided too much chaos, is not a surprise. Barnsley is obviously a huge surprise, and well done to them. And we say huge surprise, not in a patronising way, but in a congratulatory way to Barnsley, have been brilliant. Swansea, I had 8th. I thought you would drop out of the playoffs. I thought it was rabbits out of hats, snuck in there last season. But then similarly good start this season, wasn't it? And as I said in my full-on review, only the last third of the season was not automatic promotion chasing form. And it was interesting, you used the word expectations and whether they've been inflated or not, whether that's fair, whether if the points had been proportioned in a different way through the season, because we all remember sitting here after Swansea beat Norwich. Would that have been in January or late December? I'm trying to remember.
Early February that was, and then that was kind of like the last big performance, and then it kind of felt like scraping in after that. But we did obviously change the formation.
Like a really viable automatic team at that point, with Rahan having arrived. So
at that point, with Norwich when they lost to us, we had the games in hand and theoretically could have gone above them at that point, but that didn't happen, as we all know.
So big picture, I am surprised that Swans are in there, but following the season along, when you looked at where they were, they've been nailed on for the playoffs minimum since February, basically, like you're saying. So it's not a surprise as we watch the season go along, because they finished with 80 points and not necessarily been that great for the last third of the season. So it's no surprise that they're in the playoffs, with that being said. But I did predict them to not finish in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because expectations kind of shift with what's in front of you. Even if in reality you are overachieving, all of a sudden that raises the expectations, even if it's not realistic. Like we scraped in last season when we shouldn't have. So a target this season to finish in the playoffs maybe was a good target. In the end, we're comfortably in there. But I think because we were challenging for the top 2, a lot of fans were frustrated that we didn't continue to push for that. So it's about the balance. Like, I'm not frustrated myself, but it's just weird how the expectations change.
Talking to an Ipswich fan, where we had 12 years between 1969 and 1982 of incredible, way above standard success. Those expectations have lasted the last 40 years. Yeah. So, don't worry about if you're hyped up expectations and especially having been in the Premier League recently as well.
It's still, we're a Premier League club. It's like, well, got to earn that again, haven't you?
You do.
Okay, so a few surprises in the playoffs, and arguably, I kind of agree with you. Like, we're saying it was the expectation to get there, but when you look at the squad, the whole striker thing, look, you can see now in hindsight, like the goals scored was definitely our issue and probably held us back.
You said that last time I was on.
Yeah, exactly. But like, we didn't even fix it then in January, but still managing to maintain a playoff position.
Bad luck with the American loan players, though, 100%. In fairness to Cooper.
Yeah, I think Morris was the one especially, although not necessarily an out-and-out striker, but he would have added at a pace, a little bit of a different option. And whether he was maybe considering going to the formation we ended up finishing the season with a bit earlier, knowing the likes of Morris was coming in, didn't manage to happen. Areola, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Bit of a weird one. I don't know whether that's a sign-in by the board more than a sign-in by the manager because of the links with DC United as well, and everything that happened afterwards. We hardly saw him. So interesting one that, but bit of bad luck. Maybe a lack of planning because we had that lad from Southampton that was on the radar, but where's the backup plan when that's fallen through really to fix a problem that was a problem since the summer? So I guess you can ask questions in the right areas there. Regardless of that, though, let's move forward. So we did make it, as you said, and the other surprise package, Barnsley, is the team that we've been drawn up against in the first, in one of the playoff fixtures. So we're going to start away at Barnsley. We have beaten them twice this season. So for us, I think we would have picked Barnsley out of the other three competitions. So how do you see this match? What are your expectations or maybe predictions going into this playoff leg?
It's so interesting how you phrase it because just honing on the two matchups.
Yeah.
I was doing my stream at the weekend and having known that Jonathan Woodgate had rested players before the last game, I saw the Bournemouth team and it absolutely smacked of him trying to avoid Brentford. Obviously they didn't, but complete full-on team that might well even start the playoff game against Stoke. So with the matchups, it looked like Barnsley might have quite liked Brentford, and it looked like Bournemouth were trying to avoid them. So now we have Bournemouth and Brentford, which we assume is going to be quite open, quite free-flowing. We have Swansea, Barnsley, where perhaps tactically you have the two best managers in the playoffs going against each other. And often when you get two managers that are kind of tactically minded rather than, no, we're going to build up over a long time of philosophy and it's going to be about us and using the ball rather than Cooper who can have a tweak and Ishmael who basically makes every other manager have to do something different against him.
Yeah.
It could be, and I'll probably get this completely the wrong way round, it could be a very open semi-final at Brentford and Bournemouth, and it could be a tight old tactical one between Barnsley and Swansea.
Well, I think if you look at Swansea's defence this season, we didn't finish with the best defence, but for long periods, we were credited with having the best defence. So tight is probably... You'd put your money on tight, I think, especially without goal scoring as well. It's not like we score a lot of goals. So Barnsley, I think... we beat them twice this season. So we've got to take confidence from that because if you look at the other two teams, it was 2 draws against Brentford for us. And I don't know how we drew the second game, though, having said that. And then Bournemouth beat us once and we drew the other. So mentally, for the players, if that means anything, that's a positive for us. And I think difference...
Remind me what happened at the Liberty against Barnsley?
Barnsley? Oh, God. Going back to... I think we played them early in the season.
Really early?
Yeah. I'll find that for you in a second. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'll be honest with you. Let's have a look.
Remember the game at Oakwell where I thought Cooper played Ishmael's high line quite well, but I do remember that being before DK and before Mowat and Palmer had been established as a central midfield, and it was before Barnsley had peaked at that game. It was a good example of how to beat them in the first sort of half of the season, I think, wasn't it?
It was actually in December. I remember that we played them basically twice in a month, and it was 2-0 at the Liberty Stadium. Probably quite an equal game. And I think the second game we played against them away probably wasn't as equal, but that was kind of in the period where we were getting the job done, where maybe they had more chances. You could argue that they should have done better, but we didn't manage to do so. So, can we keep them out again, is the question, really. So yeah, it was 2-0 again in the away leg, but from what I remember, that first half especially, they definitely were the better team. So we scored in like 45th minute +1.
Long throw, wasn't it? I remember.
Yeah. It was. Connor Roberts. So channeling is in a Rory Delap in that one. So, yeah.
Dave Challoner.
The difference is, you asked me earlier before we started the video, maybe the tactical side of what Cooper would do.
Yeah, I'm interested.
So the 2 games we played against them this season, we played in the 5 at the back, which, we played that for a long period from the end of last season through till the last, 8 games maybe of the season here. And we have changed now to 4 at the back. And we didn't change back in the last couple of games. So I'd put my money on us starting this playoff leg in a different formation to what we've played Barnsley before this season. So it is going to look a little bit different from that aspect. I'm surprised the squad he played against Watford was basically a full team. So in the match before against Derby, he rested a lot of players. Ayew was injured, but he rested a lot of key players. I say a lot, as much as we can. Our squad depth isn't necessarily one of the biggest. But he brought them all back in against Watford, which I was a little bit surprised at. We didn't get a result, but we didn't need to get a result in that game either. So he's probably given them a little bit of game time going into the playoffs. I think that was the mentality there. And I didn't actually get to watch the game, but from what I've heard, we did play okay. So it's interesting because, I really can't call it. I'd like to say we're going to go and take the game to them and come away with a positive result, but I think I'd be naive to write Barnsley off at the same time.
Yeah, I'm really, really interested to see when that team sheet comes out, because whilst you speak very logically about, it was the last 8 games of the season and it was the back 4 and he'll stick with it, then you can make a couple of arguments to say that he'll change. One being which the obvious element of surprise, not that Ishmael will care what Swansea are going to do, because he's going to do exactly the same thing. The other is, just in my experience, managers that are tweaky, good tactical managers, when it's tight, they do like to match up. If they're going against a back 3, they play about. I've seen that quite often with, and I'm not bracketing Cooper necessarily in with the pragmatists, the Rowetts and the Hutons and the McCarthys, etc. I've just noticed that as a bit of a pattern with football managers. So I'm fascinated. I'm interested to hear you say you're pretty sure of a back 4. Let me ask you this. So if it is a back 4, and I'll make my assumptions and then you can shoot me down afterwards. And you would expect Grimes and Fulton with Hourihane. I think in a playoff, you have to play Hourihane. It's a big game.
Yeah, it would be them 3.
Big player. Yeah. And then are we assuming Ayew, Lowe and Cullen then?
Yeah, 100%. So Cullen has come back from his injury, and I think it's quite obvious he's been trying to just get him as match fit as possible, building him up, bringing him on as a sub. Then he started and played 60 minutes, and he's just been building him up. I know Routledge did do a couple of games. Routledge is old, though. No disrespect to him, he's been fantastic, and he was great when he came in for that period as well. But
that was clearly, Luke, we're losing games, get experienced players on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly, and it did this job for what it was worth. But that surprise wears off after a couple of games, and his impacted wear off. He's always got that experienced head where he's going to play a good pass and be in the game well, but it's probably easier to mark him out of the game at the same time, just because of maybe, and he's a bit older, he's not as agile as he used to be, that sort of thing. Plus, he's not an out-and-out striker, whereas Liam Cullen is the only one really available. Now, we went through that really bad period where both Lowe and Ayew was struggling up front, whether it was because we couldn't get them the ball, they just couldn't get in the game, and that's where we came, I would say, a bit predictable. And Lee Bowyer actually said after our game against Birmingham that we were predictable. And we were calling for a while to say something needed a change, and Cooper did eventually change it. So that's why I would say I don't think he will go back to it, because it was a long time where it did feel like we were just, everybody knew how to nullify our threat. And the fact that an opposition manager comes out and says that, I don't know whether that's the trigger that maybe Cooper was like, yeah, okay, I need to try something different. But as soon as he did...
Remember Brentford changed after playing against Lee Bowyer as well, didn't they? They went to the three at the back.
Well, he's come in and managed Birmingham for like 2 games at that point, and he's already looked at us and nullified how to play against us. So it's a bit alarming.
Yeah. So you're back 4 then. You're going with Bidwell and Roberts and Woodman, obviously. Who are you two centre-backs?
I don't think Roberts is going to start on the right back. I think it'll be Norton. Since we've gone back 4, it's been Norton. If anything, Roberts has been challenging to play on the wing.
Interesting.
But if
such
Ayew...
a good season. Such a great wing-back as well.
It's weird because I think he's a great wing-back, but I think Norton is a more solid right-back, because you can't really have Roberts bombing up on the wing as much from right-back in a back 4, because you maybe leave the back exposed. Sometimes it's okay. I think he did it against in one of the previous games where he scored. It was against Derby, wasn't it, when he scored that goal? He was right back when he did that. But in a playoff game where maybe you want to be a little bit more solid, I think he'll start with Norton and have Roberts as the option, because it allows a formation change.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
He's going to be up against Callum Britton, Callum Styles, who's literally just going to be over the halfway line pressing the entire game, isn't he?
Yeah, so you don't want to be caught out with that. I think if Ayew's playing as well, which he will be, he'll be starting on the right, which is somewhere he hasn't started most of the season. But Lee's not here now, but we've been arguing that he's more effective from there, because he drags a lot of players out, but when he's dragging them in the middle of the pitch, there's no one really then to take advantage of the space. But if he's dragging them out wide, so you've got the wing back or whatever, maybe you could drag one of the centre backs over. You look at the goal against Blackburn, not Blackburn, Reading, wasn't it? The one where he backheeled through someone's leg. Yeah, so that's essentially what he can do from out there, and he creates the space. Felton's running through that, and then it's just like acres of space to run into. So that's why I think he needs to be there.
Cullen central, Ayew and Lowe, sort of inverted wings. Interesting. Who are your centre backs, Luke?
It'll be Geehee, and difficult one, but I would say Bennett, because he's the experience and Geehee's the young. Cabango's same, but I think Geehee's had a better season. Not writing off Cabango role, he's also been excellent, but I think the best two is definitely Geehee and Bennett. Geehee's not been as solid in a back 4, but every game he's played, he's come better. He's definitely more comfortable in a 5, but he's only young. And I think Chelsea played back 5 as well. So it's probably just a case of that's what he's been training in for a while. I think even the England setup that he's in play with a back 5. So, he's been coming better in a 4, and I think it's still solid for him to play there.
Fascinating thing, Luke, is, and I suppose this is a feather in Steve Cooper's cap.
Yeah.
We're only really talking about one player between the two systems. It's Connor Roberts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you want to switch from the back 4 to the back 3, you bring in Roberts, you take out Cullen, Norton goes centre back, Bidwell goes wing back, front 2, and away you go. So
don't change too much.
They're only one sub away from the shape change if they need it, aren't they?
And even if it's Norton that's on the bench and Roberts starts a right back, it's the same situation. You can just bring Norton on for one of the attackers. But you're away in the first leg. I just think he's not going to want to lose that game. So I think that's why Norton starts ahead of Roberts. Maybe it's different at home, but that's what I think.
This is what I mean about the two games playing out differently, because we all know what happens when you go away to Barnsley with a risk-averse strategy. the game gets very, very stretched and very, very messy, doesn't it?
Yeah. So look, he may surprise and go with the back five again, knowing that it worked twice against Barnsley already, and want to come away with the fact that we're not losing. Maybe. I just think that we would have seen that against Watford if that was his intention, although maybe you're giving it away if you do that. So I really don't know.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to see on Monday when that team sheet comes out. But yeah.
And Luke, there's still a chance that we get the team sheet and we don't know. We don't know whether it's going to be a 4 and a 3 because
you see some of the graphics and they just put it out wrong. So it was always hard to tell. The main one they do wrong is put like one of our midfielders as a central attacking midfielder. They never play there. They literally never play there. Even when we play in 4, it's never an attacking midfielder, which I've got enough to say about that, but this isn't the video for it. I would rather that was the case, but Cooper likes a flat 3, so... And you can't argue because he's been successful in his time here, so we'll leave him have that one. I forgot anything else I wanted to discuss about this game then. Oh, here we go. Barnsley then. I think... Actually, no, both teams, from a neutral perspective, out of the two teams... One player who to look out for, who could make an impact, make the difference for each team.
I mean, it's boring for Swansea because it's always Ayew, isn't it?
Because I guess that was coming.
Yeah, because of the quality, you know. Oh, look, we can mention other players. We've just said a lot depends on Roberts or no Roberts and how he's utilised. And then I've sat in Villa Park and seen Glenn Whelan come off for Conor Hourihane. Conor Hourihane changed a playoff semi-final 2 years ago. So big game player. Scored a penalty in the shootout in the other game as well. So you know you want your big players on the big games. In terms of Barnsley, it's not about one player. It's about the two wing backs in tandem, Styles and Britton. How high are they? And where is that press? It's about Mowat and Palmer, and Mowat hasn't played the last 2 games, but we are suspecting he'll be back. Those two together, Mowat particularly, is a similar player to Grimes. Really left-footed, good set play, holding back in midfield. Obviously, DK's scored the goals, but again, it's the front 3 pressing together. If it's Woodrow, Chaplin, DK, and then look out on the set plays for Anderson and Ellick as well, but look out for that high line. They're on halfway a lot of the game, so it's thrilling, it's brave. If you go risk averse against it and you say, I don't like this press, we're going long, we're not going to get a very exciting game. But,
what was that one you did a watch along? Was it against Derby and they were just kicking it over each other?
Terrific. But Derby got a 0-0. Yeah. And if I gave you a 0-0 going into the second leg now,
you've got to back yourself
I know
at
you'd
home.
Say, yeah, we've got a chance.
Plus, there's fans in both games. Just announced this morning that we're allowed fans at home as well. So that's going to be, if you can come away, I think it's only home fans going to be attending each game. So
2,000, yeah?
If you come away from the away game with a point, I know it's not a point. When you got just your fans at home to back you in your leg where you've just got to win 1 goal, whatever, then that's got to be a massive advantage, isn't it? So you've got to take a draw away, especially when it's the first game. I think you were right though, like Swansea high press, don't always do the best against it. At least we haven't this season, I don't think. I think that's the way a lot of teams have countered us, because we do still try and play passing football. But there's been a lot of questions asked about why we go long so often. And it's usually when we can't deal with that. So we don't do long ball very well. So that causes issues in itself and maybe answers a lot of the questions why our goal scoring is so low in certain places. But I think Cooper will set up to maybe play a little bit of counter-attacking. I think that's what we will see. And I believe that's what worked against them last time, because they, especially in the second leg away, when we played them this season, like we scored right at the end of the first half, but we didn't deserve to lead. We just got them on a break. I think I know it was a long throw in the end that made the goal, but I think it would be quite a similar story. Maybe Barnsley might feel hard done by if they don't come away with a win, but I think that might be how the game goes. Okay, so I think we spoke a lot about this game. So one final question. What are you going to say in terms of a score? I'm going to put you right on the line there. Call the shots.
And I'm going to back your question away on a contractual obligation I have to write my predictions somewhere else. But
no problem.
I will repeat what I've said in respects of. I bet I get it the wrong way around. I expect Bournemouth and Brentford to be open, and I'm not saying more or less goals. I expect Barnsley and Swansea, especially like you've said that first game, that is got to be tight, isn't it? It's going to be really, really tight, and then that will set the context for the second game. And if you're Swansea, just get through that first half. There'll be set plays coming in. The press will be ludicrous. The fans will be in there at Barnsley. I'm sure they're going to want it to be nice and windy. But remember that if you can get through that, and they're so brave with how they play Barnsley. If you play well against Barnsley, you will beat them.
Yeah.
Because they will leave it open. But it's very hard to play well against Barnsley because they're so good at what they do.
If we can feed the ball to Matt Grimes and he can get some
exactly
balls through the lines, I think
it's going to be
we'll catch them off guard.
And someone like Matt Grimes is used to making things work with far less space to play into than it's going to be in behind. And it's low you want to get running in behind, isn't it? Or if it's a 4-3-3, Cullen. But it's just with Barnsley, how are you gonna cope with the obvious things that everybody's talked about already?
It's gonna be tough. I'm quite nervous actually. It's like one of them. I think it's gonna be a long 90 minutes where you're not enjoying watching the game, but Luke, you're happy with that.
I've watched a load of playoff semi-finals being an Ipswich fan, and literally I'm sick in my stomach and it's churning. I'm nervous. I've been at attendance in probably 8 or 10 playoff games as a neutral, and it's lovely. I sit there with my notepad, not a care in the world, don't matter. So I do feel your pain, I really, really do. But it's going to be a great watch tactically, Cooper versus Ishmael as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, let's touch on the other game. So we've got Bournemouth versus Brentford. I think everyone did want to avoid Brentford. I think you're right when you mentioned that earlier. If, like for us, if we manage to get through our semi-final and Brentford win theirs, that's a big, massive, after last year, semis, and the 2 games this year being a bit spicy. So I'm sure Thomas Frank will have enough to say. But Brentford's got to beat Bournemouth before that happens. Obviously, we also have to win. But what do you make of this match then? Last time I think I saw them play, I think Bournemouth maybe looked a better team at the start, but Brentford came out and won 2-1, I believe.
That was the previous time. They've actually played recently, haven't they? And Pontus Jansson got sent off and Brentford still got the win over at Bournemouth. The game you were just referring to was one of my favourite games I've seen this season. I thought the football was great from both of them. And it was as you described it. Bournemouth started really well, and then as they were doing at that point in the season, Brentford reversed it back and won 2-1. And this is where I'm going to fall flat on my face saying, Barnsley and Swansea will probably be 3-3 now, and this one will be 0-0. But both of these sides are just about pattern of play, progress the ball, create chances. You would still say, star power-wise, with Danjuma, Billing, Solanke, even if he drops in someone like Wilshere, Pearson, Lerma, Steve Cook's been around, hasn't he? And I know David Brooks hasn't been really at it, but he's still a quality player. Almost star power-wise, Bournemouth have got more, but look at the league table. Brentford have 87 points, and they have a 31-goal striker as well. So
that's crazy.
You would think they're going to be a tough opponent, and with the 3 at the back, it seems to have clicked 4 straight wins. But are people right to question the Brentford mentality when the going gets tough? Because as much as I've been a fan of Brentford, and we all get accused of being cheerleaders for them when we're covering the Championship, they have got into good positions before and not not had it in them to make the fun. Maybe it'll be different this year, but
arguably they should have got second last year, shouldn't they? I think.
Yeah. But they made it so hard for themselves. They won 8 straight games, and then I think they lose 2 at the end of the season. And
even this year, they had like 8-9 draws in a space of like 10-11 games, and now they're 4 points behind Watford. So
Luke, talk about wrong place, wrong time. 87 points and not getting up. I tweeted about this at the weekend, that there's been only 4 teams in the last 25 years have scored more points than Brentford and not gone up automatically. 2 won the playoffs and 2 got automatic the next season.
That's crazy. And I just remember, because we were in a bad patch when they were picking up all these draws, and every week it was like Brentford going to take advantage and go ahead of us. Oh no, they drew again, another lifeline, and that just seemed to happen for so long. Eventually they did manage to grasp it and pull away, but both in the playoffs at the end of it, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I think tough one to call, because a couple of weeks ago when Bournemouth were on that form that got them back into the playoff hunt, I think I was like, oh yeah, they're going to win the playoffs. It's going to be the 3 relegated teams going back up. I was just like, they didn't lose so much maybe because of COVID as other teams have in the past, and it's clearly showing now. But then things have changed again. Bournemouth have lost the last 3 games. Brentford have all of a sudden won their last 4. They're the form team going into the playoffs.
Luke, without any disrespect to Jonathan Woodgate, who's a great player, who would you least want out of the 4 managers in your dugout?
Probably him. I thought, I didn't know if it was the correct decision when they brought him in, I'll be honest. I think at the time I was like, oh yeah, that's all right. They're not going to come challenge us now. They're going to be, wrongly maybe, because they have had good form since he's come in, but this is probably his biggest challenge, isn't it? So can he do it when it matters?
So yeah. And then remember, if he does win the playoffs, everyone's going to say, he had Dan Juma, he had Solanke, but do you know what I mean?
It's a bit of an unwinning situation.
It's a no-win, isn't it?
Yeah, well, good luck to them, but not too much good luck, of course. Good luck to them.
But you may well be meeting one of them if you get through into the final.
I don't even know who I would want to pick, because I actually think we'd have more chance beating Brentford. Like we drew with them twice this season. I would argue we should have won the first game and lost the second. Bournemouth,
different in a one-off game as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Bournemouth, however, over the 2 games we played in this season, I feel less comfortable. They battered us when we went away, and the game at home was quite dull. So, not really much going on our part, is what I'm trying to say, against Bournemouth this season. But again, their squad is not too much different from their Premier League squad last season, is it? So, you can't be too harsh. But you've got to beat what's in front of you now, because that now is when it matters. So, yeah, it's tough. Players to watch then for these 2 teams. Who do you pick out?
We know the landscape now. You've got a 31 goal striker and you've got last player of the month, haven't you? So look, you would think by normal numbers, if Tony plays 3 games in the playoffs, he's going to score 2 goals. Yeah. That's what his numbers tell you. Fosu's useful, goes under the radar as well. And one real one to watch, they might have Rico Henry back, who you'll remember being red carded in the which was then rescinded in the semi-final.
That's what kicked it all off, isn't it, basically? That's what started all of the bad blood and Connor Roberts' confrontation with Thomas Frank and all the rest of it. But
exactly. He may be returning, but we don't think we'll be seeing Josh Da Silva or Henrik Dalsgaard. And one to watch is always Pontus Jansson, because he looks a great player when in the close season, in the middle of the season when things are going well. And I did second tier podcast with Ryan and oh god, I've forgotten the other guy's name.
I've seen him on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh god, he's actually going to kill me. And they called out exactly the same thing. He's been on my channel as well, and it's just completely
good content.
In my mind. I'm an awful person.
Podcast. Go check that out. You were on there recently, were you?
Yeah, it comes out today. Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Go check that out. Whoever's watching later on.
Yeah, and go and tell them about me forgetting people's names. But yeah, so it's Tony, and it's obviously Dan Juma for Bournemouth, isn't it? Although I just have a feeling: do you drop Jack Wilshere in a playoff semi-final just You know there's that quality. You know there's that experience. I wonder whether he might throw him in with Lerma in the centre mid.
I think he started when we played them, and it's not like he had a bad game. They smashed it. So, I mean, it's quality regardless who's playing there. So I think either one is going to do a good job. Maybe sometimes a little bit of a surprise if the other team's not expecting it can go in your favour. So could be something that maybe for one of the legs they drop him in.
And especially if you chase him, because obviously if you go with a Pearson and a Lerma, it's very much we want to stop central midfield. Whereas, if you go with Lerma and Wilshere maybe, then
maybe you
know what Wilshere gives you. Yeah. Certainly gives you a lot more going forward than he does.
Bit of flair, maybe.
Defensively.
You mentioned Tony and his goal output. I just always I just imagine he was in a Swan shirt or someone of the equivalent. How might our season have looked? I just, you can dream, I guess. Brewster, even if we had him back this season.
Oh, absolutely, and it can just look. It's football. The whole objective of the game is to score goals, and the reason it's a cliche. They get paid the most is it's the hardest thing to do. Anyone who can stick the ball in the net isn't playing centre. Okay, maybe Frank Lampard, but isn't playing central midfielder. They're up the top at the business end, and
no, you're right.
And it is and we joked with the Leeds fans last year if they'd had Mitrovic, they'd had 100 points and been. But then obviously Bamford's turned out to be very, very good this season, hasn't he? But everyone is going to lament what they don't have. I'm sure a few teams would love to have Ayew as well.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to remember what we have as well. Okay, so we've discussed a bit on the 4 teams. One question then, looking at the 4 teams that are in there, I think there's different stages maybe of a club's route. I think everyone's goal is to go up. Some teams have come down, they still got parachute payment. They've got Brentford maybe been chasing for a while. Barnsley, the unexpected package, maybe weren't expected to be there. It's kind of like a free hit. The question is, how important is winning the playoffs to each of these clubs? Who is it most important for? They have to go back. They have to go up now.
Seismic for all of them. You just given the cliff edges in English football's wealth distribution, there is no one where it's more. Yeah. I can give you the same argument for every team. Look, Brentford. Been pushing. Never had a parachute payment, never been in the Premier League. If they get in there, that changes their club forever, doesn't it? Swansea, parachute payments just running out now, haven't necessarily used them. Ownership hasn't necessarily invested. Go back into the bunch next year. Does someone come for the manager?
I'd argue that
would be massive.
And
then Barnsley.
Sale might even happen.
Will Barnsley get a chance as good again? You never know. They might now go on and be viable top championship side all the time. And then Bournemouth were probably in the most disarray of any of the teams that came down. They'll go on to the year 2 parachute, but you know that there's going to be players leaving in the summer if they don't go up. Given the cliff edges as I'm repeating myself, in the wealth distribution, it's just such a huge thing to get into that. And as well as I do, even if it's for one season, it's that one season can change the future of your club for 10 years now.
I said yesterday in a podcast that we were on, if we did manage to go up, I wouldn't even care. Well, I say not care, but you'll get what I'm trying to say. But like Norwich went up, come back down. They went up in a sensible manner, spent in a sensible manner. They've come back down and kind of smashed the league. They're probably going up a second time in a better place. So if we did a similar plan to that, I wouldn't really mind, because the long term, that's probably more sustainable, a little bit better than going up, spend to try and stay up. Maybe then you've got to come back down and have a fire sale like we did the first time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you earlier, but what I was saying is if we did go up, our accounts have come out recently, and looking at it with some of the boys, we were wondering if it might be a quick sale on the cards from our owners, try and get back as much as what they can out of what they put in the first place. This may be one to watch for us. However, whatever that would mean, who knows, because I don't even know who would come in at the moment. It's a difficult landscape, football, finance and stuff at the moment, especially with everything going on. last thing then, really, I want to ask. I know you cover the dearly departed, so without saying who you think necessarily, obviously, I know you've got your predictions that you maybe can't discuss, but if you could just pick one that you would love to cover next season as a dearly departed team, who would it be?
I'm going to say Barnsley, don't you? Because it'd just be such fun if they
fairy
just
tale.
Went up and did not care. Just went away to Man City and defending on the halfway line, just pressing the hell out of everybody.
Imagine they snuck a 1-0 at Man City. That would be insane.
Yeah, it'd be sensational, wouldn't it? So that would be a lot of fun. Honestly, my normal answer is very boring, and it's what topic gives me the most traction in terms of comments and views and things of that nature. It's fairly even with all four of it. Obviously, Barnsley is a good news story at the moment, so there are people outside of Barnsley who are interested in hearing about Barnsley at the moment.
Yeah.
But you know me, may the best team win, and whoever gets promoted, I will cover on my dearly departed shows next season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing who that is. Hopefully, it's us, and then we can look forward to more of you covering the Swans then in more of a focus as they go up. That would be great. But
there you go. And if you're a Swans fan, whichever way round, next season I will still be covering the Swans.
Yes, indeed. And it is worth checking out Ben's content. As you said at the start, you did an in-depth season review for Swansea last week, I believe, was it? And obviously...
Yeah, and I just think, look, I can't speak with as much knowledge or authority as you guys can. But I think for your fans, sometimes it's nice to see someone who's outside of the bubble.
No, definitely.
What does it look like from the outside? I think so. I wouldn't claim to know as much as you guys do. You're doing it day in, day out on the one team. But I find it interesting to dip in and dip out of teams. So yeah, go and give it a watch. Why not?
No, that's great. That's exactly why I wanted to bring you on for this video and last time, is to get the sort of outside perspective, because sometimes I think when you're in that bubble, you always say leave your bias at the door, but sometimes when you're in that bubble, that's not always the case, is it? So you maybe a little bit like you've got beer goggles
at the door as well.
Yeah, you've got beer goggles for your own club, if you like, where you kind of don't necessarily see some of the bigger picture sometimes, and that's where sometimes looking at other views like yourself, you see things in a different light because you don't support the club. So the classic example that I always bring up is Andre Ayew. Sometimes, like throughout the season, his performances, people are like, he can do better. He's not doing as much as he should be doing in this league, all the rest of it. But when you speak to usually anyone else that's not a Swansea fan, in that same game, they will say they thought he played really well. Because they see what he does against their team, whether that's like pulling the defence around, giving them a tough time, not just the goal scoring or the assists or the stuff like that Swans fans are just looking out for now because they see him week in, week out. And you kind of maybe appreciate a little bit more what you've got because you see it from the other perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's everything. Got anything else that you want to touch on then before we end the video in regards to the playoffs?
No, just good luck, and hopefully we've hyped up the seismic nature of Swansea being able to get through 3 games without losing, and then Premier League, eh?
Well, we did it before. Can we do it again? That's the question. Obviously, last season, maybe you could say that was the trial run. The players now know what to expect. They're going to go in and get the job done. Well, let's hope anyway. And let's hope Steve Cooper, who has got experience in knockout competitions, can be the mastermind at the front of it all.
There you go.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining us there. Well, joining me then, Ben. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully we'll have you back on again. But remind everyone where they can find your content and engage with you.
Yeah, so Benjamin Bloom Football Channel on YouTube, at Benjamin Bloom on Twitter. Got Instagram. I sometimes put my dogs on it. I'm not very good, to be honest. So
get some good music on there too.
Now and again, yeah. So yeah, Twitter and but YouTube's the main way. If you're really lovely person, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom is where you can support my ambition to ramble about football for money. Hey, wouldn't that be a fine thing?
Well, you're doing very well, and I think you'll get there soon. But one question: are you going to be doing the watch along for the playoffs.
Do you want to know something really funny? Yes, all of them. However, this news story came out yesterday. Oh, EFL in talks, happy to move the playoff final.
I saw that. Champions League, is it?
The Champions League. And I'm immediately going, oh no. Because me and my missus, have not been able to go to our favourite restaurant for an entire year. And it is booked on Friday the 28th of May. And I had a very awkward conversation. Darling, there's a small possibility that the playoff... I left it at that. The playoff final, if it's moved, may clash with our meal. And if you saw the look I got, I do not want that playoff final moving to the Friday. So
personally, is that the day before, or is that like bringing it a day earlier?
I don't know. So they could... I don't think they're going to do it because it looks like the Champions League final is going to go to Portugal rather than Turkey, Istanbul. But they've mooted it as either moving date or moving location. So you could still have the playoff final on the Saturday, but I don't know, move it to Villa Park or Old Trafford.
We'll have it in the Millennium Stadium, just up the road.
Yeah, Millennium Stadium. Well, that might be a bit of a home game if there's a Welsh team in it. But hey,
it's in Cardiff. You can't say it's a home game.
Yeah, if it was Wembley, wouldn't it? So, yeah.
Okay, well,
so I will be watching, unless if I'm not watching, assume HQ has decreed.
At least for the semi-finals, if anybody wants some alternative commentary and interaction and the chance to engage while watching the chat, go check out Ben's watch-alongs for the games. Yeah, I think we'll be in the pub, so...
I love it.
But, yeah, good luck.
No chance of being in the stadium?
It's 3,000 tickets. Myself, because of my job, I don't have a season ticket. Lee does. But... they haven't announced how, and this might be information for anyone watching actually, as of the recording of this video, they have not announced how they will be allocating the 3,000 tickets. My guess is going to be, there's an option with the season tickets, so like you could keep your season ticket, not take the refund. I think you had access to all the live streams of the games, stuff like that. I would assume those people that didn't take the refund will get priority, and I'd imagine that probably is fair. They kind of left the money in, helped the club out in that aspect. So I'm guessing that will be where the tickets go. And yeah, I don't think I'll be able to go on that basis. But, it's fine. If the pubs are meant to be back open, I think, on the Monday, and that's the first day where you can go inside. So maybe it'll be a good...
carnage on the first day, yeah.
A good day to have your first pint back in the pub, but if there's availability. So we'll see. When it comes to Wembley, I don't know, because if we get there, that is, I'm not sure what the situation will be, how many people will be there, how that will work. I'll try to go, as I'm sure Lee will as well, and the others, but we'll see what happens with that. Otherwise, we'll try and make the most of it anyway. Exciting times, but yeah, thanks for coming on again. Hopefully we'll have you back on again soon, and otherwise we'll see you on Twitter and stuff, and catch up with you where we can.
You got it.
See you all again next time. So thanks as always, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for any more playoff content that's going to be coming. We've got a Swansea perspective coming later this week, and then we'll have a look after the match to see what happened, and also look ahead to the next match sometime next week. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen after that, so we'll keep you updated. So follow us on Twitter to keep updated with all of our content. And on that note, we shall see you again next time. Thanks again for coming, Ben, and I shall see you all again soon. Cheers. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, to click the like button to help us grow. To keep up to date with all of our new uploads, hit the subscribe button and push the bell to ensure you are notified of all of our new videos. As always, engage in the comments and let us know your opinions on what we discussed today. And if you want to support us directly, check out our new merch where you can find some awesome Swansea related t-shirts.